Everyone always tells you to pick the best career, something in demand, something that pays well, and something that opens as many doors as possible. But after 7 years of working in tech and data science, I think we were taught wrong. Here's why. In your 20s, you're making the biggest decision of your life based on an incomplete version of yourself. A version that's mostly shaped by the type of environment that you happen to grow up in. And because of that, it's easy to become obsessed with finding the right path. We tend to optimize for safe choices because we're afraid that the cost of getting it wrong is just too high. And in India, if you weren't going to be a doctor, engineering was the default, besides commerce and business. It was almost guaranteed that if you graduated with a degree in computer science, you would land a decent job. And honestly, that's held up. I have nothing against it. I'm actually glad I did it because it's still one of the most sought after skills today. But looking back, I can see how much of this decision was actually optimized for safety and not alignment. And that's okay because I was only working with the information that I had at the time. Here's what I've come to realize though. The biggest career mistake isn't accidentally picking one career that doesn't turn out how you thought it would. It's believing that a career choice defines you forever when really it's just one of the forces shaping who you become over time. Your career isn't a life sentence. It's just a starting point. Let me explain. When I was younger, in my late teens, I thought that the biggest career decision was picking the right stream in school: commerce, STEM, or medical science. These were the only real options. And I chose STEM. And once that decision was behind me, I thought the next big choice was the job title: software engineer, consultant, data scientist, project manager. I spent so much time thinking about what I wanted to do that I basically reduced a career decision to job titles and salaries. But there were so many other variables that I completely overlooked. Ones that ended up having a much bigger impact on my happiness and growth. Things like my environment, the people around me, culture, and the lifestyle that actually came with the job. And your environment isn't just where life happens. This isn't even unique to just white collar jobs. It shows up everywhere. Like, athletes don't become elite because they picked the perfect sport once. They become elite because they spent years in environments that push them to do better. And you'll see that successful entrepreneurs almost never credit their success to simply deciding to start a business one day. They talk about the people they met, the mentors who showed up, the markets they stumbled into, and the problems that they were forced to solve. Those environments are actually what shaped how they think. So yeah, today I believe that environment is one of the biggest forces shaping the person you eventually become. And yet, in our late teens and early 20s, we almost never optimize for it. Careers don't just reflect your identity or your abilities. They manufacture a part of it. When we are of legal age, we assume that we know enough about ourselves to be making such big decisions. And if we're not sure, then our parents, teachers, or the society in general is just happy to make that decision for us. But the blueprint that they're all working from at that point is pretty incomplete. You're essentially making one of the biggest decisions of your life before you've actually had any real experience, especially experiences that would help you understand yourself more. You haven't worked under real pressure yet. You haven't managed a difficult coworker or gone through burnout. And a lot of what you decide to do is influenced by social media, secondhand advice, or oversimplified versions of careers that rarely match reality. So looking back, I think that instead of asking myself, what's the hottest, most lucrative career right now, a better question would have been, what kind of lifestyle will this career create for me, and what kind of person is it going to turn me into? I mean, you can find a lot about these experiences today online with people creating content, so many people sharing their experiences. And maybe 10-15 years ago, this would have been a little bit more challenging, but still a question worth sitting with. By the way, if you're still watching this and you're already in a job wondering whether you need a full career change or just a different role, I put together a guide to help you think through exactly that. I'll leave that linked in the description below. So if your job title is only one piece of the puzzle, what other factors do we actually need to be considering while making a career choice, and why? So after moving to Toronto, I noticed something interesting. Two people can have the exact same job title and end up living completely different lives. A software engineer in Toronto is probably surrounded by people chasing promotions, switching companies every couple of years, showing up to networking events, and always talking about the next big thing. And that same software engineer in Vancouver might care more about flexible hours, being close to nature, spending weekends outdoors, and just having more balance in general. Neither person is better than the other. They're just responding to the environment around them. Your daily conversations, opportunities, and even the people you end up looking up to for inspiration all shift depending on where you live. And over time, even your definition of success starts to change. So, where you live quietly edits your identity one day at a time. And hopefully that's aligned with who you are. Now, I know most of us don't get the luxury of choosing where we live, especially early in our careers. We tend to go wherever the opportunities are. But I think it's worth being aware that your location isn't just affecting your salary. It's shaping your priorities, ambitions, and eventually the kind of person you're becoming. For example, if a super enthusiastic, passionate software engineer had to choose a job that pays 50K in Seattle versus 100K in Vermont, let's say, which one do you think would be the better fit? You don't just pick a city, you move into a different definition of what counts as enough. And that's also why comparing your life to someone else's can be so misleading. You might have started off in the same career, but years of living in different environments can mold you into completely different people with completely different values. The industry you choose to work in shapes your day-to-day even more than you think. Every industry has its own unwritten rules, its own incentives, and its own definition of success. Finance and sales, for example, they tend to reward intensity, long hours, and they have a fairly structured path for progression. Academia rewards patience, depth, and years of specialization. Startups reward speed, agility, and comfort with uncertainty. Technology rewards continuous learning because the tools and skills you need to keep up are evolving so much faster nowadays. So when you choose an industry, you're not just choosing your paycheck, you're choosing a rhythm of life, your work hours, your stress levels, and the kinds of people you'll end up spending thousands of hours with. Take my own career as an example. As a data scientist working in banking, I have a completely different lifestyle from data scientists who work in consulting. The work might look similar on paper, but the reality of the day-to-day is completely different. A consulting data scientist might spend a huge chunk of time traveling, working with different clients, and constantly adapting to new projects. Whereas someone in banking, like myself, is more likely to have a stable team, a consistent domain of work, and a more predictable routine. Again, neither is inherently better. They're just different. But same job title, same LinkedIn headline, and completely different nervous systems by Friday. And so once you've picked your industry, there's one final layer that shapes your experience even more: the company you work for. Now, this is the part that's kind of hard to evaluate from the outside, but it often has the biggest impact on your day-to-day experience. Your organization's culture determines whether mistakes become learning opportunities or political disasters. The work itself might only take up a part of your day, but the culture determines how that work actually feels. Again, two people with the same title in the same industry earning similar salaries can end up in careers that feel completely different, simply because they're sitting inside different environments. And that can influence how they feel about the industry as a whole, or the location, or even the job itself. And here's the risk, right? You can't fully understand a company's culture until you're in it. And I think that's just part of uncertainty that comes with every career decision. But just being aware of how culture can influence how you feel about the job as a whole also helps you ask better questions to your interviewers. Here's a question that I found super useful to understanding what I'm getting into. Next interview, try and ask this: what are your least favorite parts of the job, or what do you wish would be better in your job? People don't usually lie, but their answer should give you a really good picture of what might be wrong on their team. And then you can make a decision whether you want to be a part of that and explore or not. Again, I know sometimes we don't really have a choice, especially in this market, but it's worth considering and knowing what you're getting into so you're mentally prepared. That answer is going to tell you more than the job description itself. So coming back to my own story, in my late teens and early 20s, I felt like the career choice I was making purely based on my educational credentials was permanent, set in stone. But once I realized that career you choose can shape you back and change you, I understood something else too. Wanting a new career change to reflect the person that you've become now isn't failure. It's part of growth. Just because the career you chose with a lot of thought doesn't feel the way you thought it would, it doesn't mean that you're rejecting your entire past. It's a stepping stone towards your future. And so here's what I wish someone had told me before I started my career. Do your research, talk to people, understand the trade-offs. But don't assume that you can make the perfect decision today for the person you'll become in the next decade. Titles and salaries matter, but they shouldn't be the only things that you're optimizing for. Pay just as much attention to the environments that you're stepping into, because those environments will quietly shape the person you become and the life you end up living. And here's the actual takeaway. The next time you're evaluating a job offer, don't just ask what tools will I be using or what kind of work will I be doing. Focus on asking yourself, who will this make me become? That single question can filter out so many bad decisions than any salary comparison tool could. Remember, you're not just choosing a job, you're choosing what your life becomes while you're doing it. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe to my channel, and share it with a friend who might need to hear it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.